thank you, everybody, for coming here.
This is your Sweetheart Get Me Rewrite Leader Fan Radio Network.
Well, see you later.
And KFAN.com. 3 minutes and 5 seconds past the hour, 3 o'clock Central Standard Time. Welcome back. Bumper to Bumper Show. I'm out of breath. Can you play the Halvey sound for me to bail me out?
Sure, yeah. Let me find it here.
Hermantown?
Gotta go.
Man, oh man.
Different area. Did you sprint across the Al Shaver press box?
Well, you know what? Close. I forgot. We got these detours now. You can't get here from our desks the way we could.
Hermantown.
That's it. I feel very Hermantown-like right now. Bumper to Bumper program on a beautiful, almost balmy Friday afternoon here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul.
Heck of a hockey game. The second of two great games here at the X thus far.
That's about me right now. My name is Dan Barreiro, the occasional host. Guards is the occasional producer.
Hermantown.
And we are going, I think, the distance today, 6:30.
Yeah, if you can handle it.
I'm running on empty, but I'm going to get through it. I got my Java, so I'm going to get my second wind going as well.
So we can't go down this hallway at all?
Well, I was told we can't. Maybe some people do anyway. There's a big plastic thing that indicates this is a construction zone.
Yeah, which is why I haven't been going.
Yeah.
But it did look like there was some tape kind of around it, like there was almost a door maybe that you could theoretically go through, but I don't want to be that guy.
Believe it or not, on those kinds of things, I'm a rules follower.
Me too.
I'm not someone that's I'm just going. So
me too.
Maybe we're the idiots. Maybe everybody else is continuing to go.
We're getting all the extra steps,
and that is, and that's part of why I'm out of breath.
Hermantown.
There is an old saying in the world of old fashioned journalism. Sweetheart, get me rewrite, and the deal was sort of back in the day. You're covering a story, and you've already written it, and it's already in type. This is back in the day when there was no internet, where breaking news got broken whenever the next edition of a newspaper could get out, right? And the bit, I don't know if it started on in a movie or if it was wouldn't have been a TV show, whatever it was, the very curmudgeonly, crusty reporter, the beat guy, out on the town, covering whatever the story might be, finds out that there's a new twist. There's something new. And so whatever's in print, it's got to be rewritten. So it would be, of course, Sweetheart, because back in the day, there were a lot of politically incorrect things said, maybe even sexist things said. So the assumption was a woman would be answering the phone, and then she would have to then transfer that call to someone else. And when the woman answers that phone, the crusty reporter who's got the fedora hat, the tie is askew, right? He says, sweetheart, get me rewrite. At which point, then the call would go to the copy desk, where they would then have somebody rewrite, maybe dictation, on the basis of dictation from said reporter. This whole show feels like it's sweetheart, get me rewrite. That's how it feels, because as most of you know by now, whatever we had planned at the start of the day is now irrelevant. We have a never-ending series of toy department stories that have gotten the attention of folks all over town. We've got at least one dismissal, unless something's changed, and one mutual parting of the ways. At least that's the way it's being presented.
A mutual uncoupling.
That is 100% correct. And then no one else has been fired that we know of, right?
Don't think so. In
terms of the toy department, correct?
Correct. Don't think so.
Well, put it this way. I don't think Tim Connolly is in any trouble. And I don't think Bill Guerin is in any trouble at the moment, either one of them. Now, things can change early and quickly and on a dime, but I think they're both safe. I think, who's the new Twins manager?
Derek Shelton.
I think he's safe.
Well, he might not think it
for now, because he just got hired.
Yeah.
Although you got to wonder what he's thinking, given the guy who presumably hired him is now gone. I think, realistically speaking, Finchie is safe, right?
Especially after last night.
He's not in any trouble at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, I think in terms of dismissals or mutual parting the ways, that should be the end of it. But it is pretty cataclysmic and tumultuous when your local pro football team and your local Major League Baseball team both make this kind of news, 2 hours apart, or was it even that?
It was about that,
About 2 hours?
Yeah, before noon on the same day, essentially. I could look at the timestamps of the different news releases.
Yes.
Because every single time I got an email today, it was somebody was leaving. 11:59 was the official release.
Okay, on the Vikings. Okay,
and 9:47.
So yeah,
was
you're
the
right. That's
so
about 2 hours.
Two and change.
Two and change. And I assume that's coincidental. I don't think one had anything to do with the other, but I believe they're both quite shocking. Not necessarily because no one thought Kwesi might be on double secret probation, but because the assumption was if you're going to make a move on him, you probably already would have done it. You wouldn't have dispatched him to Mobile, Alabama for Senior Bowl festivities. And most assuredly, there were people who thought that Derek Falvey, after a very promising start, had kind of come back to the pack and should be more vulnerable. But it was hard to notice because the Twins had so many other problems. But if you did felt he was vulnerable, you probably didn't think, well, they're going to make a move 2 weeks before they hit spring training, right? That's not logical. That doesn't make any sense. So I look at the second one as, and this is me just speculating. This is not me reporting necessarily on this, but I think you just use your deductive reasoning a little bit that if you make this kind of move right now, there was a schism. And maybe there was a schism for a while, but there had to have been something that triggered this at this moment that indicates a very direct and dramatic difference of opinion on something between the newest poll ad, one would assume, Tom, and Derek Falvey, right? Because you don't, there's nobody in their right mind does this because they planned to do it 2 weeks before the start of spring training. In the case of Kwesi, it does feel a little bit late. Could it be similarly a schism? Something boiled up that got the attention of, in this case, the Wilfs. They're saying, this is us. We did this. I guess it's possible. Could there have been, is it possible that Ziggy sat down in Kwesi's office at some point in the last couple weeks and said, man, did we screw up the quarterback thing worse than we thought at the time? And then they got into an argument about it. I guess that's possible. So, but I don't think that sounds logical either. In the case of the Vikings, this is part of what we're going to talk about. Ben Goessling is coming into studio at 3:30. And I don't want to get too conspiratorial because I try to resist that, certainly more than most people, than many people in our audience. But is this the classic case of the other guy in the power structure? Because there is only one other guy in the power structure, and that's Kevin O'Connell, coalescing his power, gaining a little bit more power, and now, even without a title, fancy title, becoming a de facto, if not general manager, more than just a head football coach. Because there were people who thought that's the way it was headed anyway. And that when it comes to drafts, the longer he was here, the KOC was more and more, had injected more and more of himself into that. And is this just the next step? I will be shocked if the announcement is we are broadening Kevin O'Connell's responsibilities. He will now be the coach and the general manager. I will be gobsmacked if they go that far.
Yep.
But if they don't replace Kwesi, because right now the plan for the draft this year is Brzezinski's the guy.
He's in charge.
Rob Brzezinski historically has been what? He has been
the capologist,
right?
Numbers guy,
That's
the numbers
it.
Genius.
That's exactly it. The longer you stay on that, though, the more I get suspicious that KOC is saying, well, this is fine with me. I'll just, I'll take care of it, Rob. Don't worry about it. I got some people I can talk to about potential third-round draft choices or whatever the case may be, because that's what it smells like a little bit. I'm not suggesting it's a palace coup. on the part of KOC. I'm not saying he stabbed anybody in the back. I have no knowledge of that. I have no reason to suggest that. But I think long before this, there was more and more of a feeling from people who've covered this team that KOC's rising. He's more than a coach at this point. He's got more in what he is doing and what he is demanding than just being the head coach of this team. And quite frankly, the whole quarterback saga, to me, is proof of that. And that's why even, I think it was just yesterday or the day before, I mentioned that if you're blaming Kwesi for the quarterback mess, you're leaving out a very important figure, and that would be KOC, because his fingerprints are all over it from the beginning. Other stuff, maybe not so much. So there we have it. I mean, is this unprecedented in this market? Have we ever had big-time executives from two different professional
I don't think so.
franchises either get fired or walk away in mutual agreement on the same day?
That would be a Dan Wenesota question. He would have access to it and probably memory of it.
Yes.
But this does seem... Well, that was the funniest part is when we both pulled up to Fox 9 and Enough Said, and I turned to you and go, it's not even noon. And you look at me like, what's the problem? I go, Kwesi.
And I didn't even know about Falvey. You're the one who told me about Falvey, too.
I didn't know about Falvey
I did not know about Falvey.
Oh, it was a busy morning.
Yeah.
It was a busy morning.
Until you mentioned it to me.
Yeah, that was earlier in the morning when I told you that.
Yes, correct.
But both of those were pretty instantaneous, but it was wild. It was a crazy morning.
Extremely crazy
Epstein
morning.
files got released. We've got protests. We've got press conferences.
In town.
Springsteen.
By the way, speaking of that, on our production meeting, it looks like we're going to be able to get at some point a minute or two with rock critic institution John Bream, who is at the Springsteen concert. Is it still going on right now, or did it end a while ago? It was an afternoon concert at First Ave. In which he plays his new the
Streets of
Minneapolis that's gotten so much attention. So we're going to get to Bream, who is right in the middle of it at some point. We'll work on times as well. I mentioned Goessling, 3:30 in studio. In addition, Lavelle, regular time, 5:30?
Yes.
And who knows, you tell me if there's anything else we need to talk about right now. In the meantime...
Grand in your hand time, bonus bucks time, final day of the week, and check is the first keyword of the show. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword check.
Oh. All right, as I said, Ben Goessling usually joins us at 4:30 on Fridays. We're moving that up to pretty close to the bottom of this hour, maybe a little later than that, depending on his arrival time, because there are no predictions to do this week. We'll obviously have the return of the predictions segment on the next Friday, a week from today. I will add, I'm a little surprised you haven't received any kind of a gleeful voicemail from Gerby, because I mean, it's funny because he's the guy who says everybody else is too mean to him, like when the Packers get eliminated.
Right.
And yet, what does he tend to do? He dances on these sports graves, doesn't he? He does it all the time. So I'm a little, I guess, stunned that he hasn't already left some, celebratory, what do you think your franchise now? Especially when the news came down today that the Packers, for the moment, are representing the other extreme. They announced contract extensions officially for both their head coach and for their general manager.
Maybe that's why. Maybe he's feeling a little sheepish because one organization is recognizing failure and saying, we're not going to do this anymore. Even one more offseason. This is a critical offseason for us.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
Because that's what Mark Wilf said today.
Yes.
We didn't want another offseason kind of with this looming, so we said it's a critical offseason. We're going to make the move now. As you said, they're doubling down on a regime that, what has it gotten them, really? Except some heartache and heartbreak here recently.
All right.
That's the difference between the organizations,
so
is what I would say to Gerby.
That we have standards and they don't.
Apparently.
Even though we've never won a Super Bowl and haven't been one. Yeah. What's the year of our last Super Bowl appearances? We looked.
It's in the 70s.
It's in the late 70s, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. I'll say
double
this.
check it.
I was born in 1982. I haven't seen
Not
one.
in your lifetime.
Yes. So
here's the.
I didn't buy weed at one of them like the late great Joe Friedberg.
That's right. Remember that?
Was that Tulane?
That was
New Orleans or the Rose Bowl?
Well, I thought the weed story was at Candlestick. Or maybe
No.
that was a different weed
Yeah,
story.
it could have been, yeah.
I think Joe had more than one weed story, to be honest with you. That's very...
1977 was our last
77,
one.
so that's 23. So we're coming up on 50 years.
Lost to the Raiders, 32-14.
Yeah, it wasn't even close.
Didn't score in the first half.
No. One of the more compelling questions here is, I don't know if you saw the Schefter report.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout the season, there was talk about an underlying quote-unquote tension in the Vikings building and league circles. Sources told Adam Schefter. One league source told Schefter it had been, quote, ugly in Minnesota. Well, again, that might be true. It might be true. It wouldn't be surprising based on some other reports we've had, because I do think one of the more underreported stories is the tension between the Jackals and KOC.
Sure. Which you could see firsthand if you watch press conferences.
You could, and I guess behind the scenes, when we had that two-step across the pond to Europe, it got much worse then. But, is it too convenient that we get the ugly, because that's a vivid word to use, ugly in Minnesota after this announcement? You know what I'm saying? I mean, where you got nothing to lose at that point, because you could almost assume that there might be some ugliness. So I don't know how much to believe in it. I believe somebody said it to Schefter. I don't think he makes stuff up, but this is what tends to happen when things go south, right? It's now everybody the Jackals outside the organization kind of reveling in this organization having the difficulties it has. Oh yeah, I think I heard somebody say it was ugly. I'm going to go ahead and release that anonymously now, because anything that's going to make them look worse, that might bring some embarrassment to them that they might have to answer to, we don't care, right? It's not our problem. So I don't know what to make of that. And I need more detail. Like, when we talk about tension, what does that mean?
Right.
Does that mean literally the coach and the general manager butting heads? Does that mean B-flow? I need a little more information about the tension. It's too broad for me to really be all that interested in it, unless it can be, sort of drilled down on, and we could get a little bit more specific. I know for most of our listeners, and I have not yet rebooted the Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line at 64686 yet, because I got to get my verification code, that a lot of Vikings fans, I'm sure, I'm a little gassy today, are celebrating it, because we get people calling for Kwesi's head every day. And let's face it, there's room. It's not that difficult to look at the record, especially the draft record, and say, not much there. One of the stats that's gotten, the analytic stats that's gotten the most, I don't even know if it's an analytic stat, it's just a straight fact. We have received, in the drafts between 2022 and 25, that's his draft record, we've received 172 starts. That's second worst in the entire National Football League. That's a damning stat. But again, you're thinking, well, the timing just seems a little bit odd. But it could be as simple as the owners thought about it some more. That does happen.
Some more due diligence.
Stuff doesn't always exactly happen on, the perfect schedule. The draft's not that far off. So what's interesting about it is they're saying, we're going to go and get another general manager, we think. But it's going to be after the draft.
Right.
So you're going to count on what you have. So as far as I'm concerned, I've always respected Rob Brzezinski. I like Rob Brzezinski. I'm not here impugning his ability or anything, but I'm not a fool. KOC will be running the Vikings draft, as far as I'm concerned. Until it can be proven otherwise to me, it's going to be a KOC draft, don't you think?
KOC and Flo for the defensive guys, probably, but
that's
KOC's
true.
probably got the final say.
They divide it up a little bit. Yeah,
exactly. That's what it would seem like.
Yeah, that's certainly how it looks like. What it looks like.
I wonder how much Brzezinski did in the draft before this. If he was just mostly capology guy, right? That might be a question for Ben.
It is a good
what is
question
his
for Ben.
draft role in general?
What has it been?
Yeah,
You're exactly right.
What has it been historically? Is this going to be something completely different or foreign to him? To me, it'd be an interesting one.
Yeah, I think it is, and we'll cover all of that with him. And I am efforting. Let me see if he got back to me. I don't think he did. Now, who's calling me? Oh, it's an 855 number. I don't even know what that means. That's one of those spam numbers,
Could
isn't
be.
it?
I wouldn't get it. Yeah.
No, I don't want to do it. I don't want to
lose
click
your
on
identity.
it.
No, just leave it.
I click on anything.
Just let it go.
Yeah.
I don't want to read about your Bitcoin winnings on Twitter. So don't.
Well, I'm waiting for a text back from John Bream. Apparently the Springsteen benefit concert, ended at 2 at First Ave. So Bream was there, and of course, naturally. I mean, I don't even know that. I think Springsteen said we're not starting until Bream is
Bream
here because he was running behind.
Yeah,
they held off until Bream got there. That's what I was told. And I don't know how true that is. See what Bream says. Let's do 4:30ish. So what we'll do is when we wrap things up with your guy and my guy Ben Goessling, then we'll get Bream at 4:30. We got Lavelle at 5:30. And for some reason, I thought you were trying to book somebody else. Are we waiting on that? Bloom? Or are we going to wait till next week?
I think, yes. Good reminder.
We have another protest downtown that has been described to me as not as big as last week, but still sizable. And I don't know if it's ending at Target Center again or what exactly is going on. Do you? I have no idea.
I don't know.
But we'll keep an eye on it.
In all honesty, it's been a toy department day.
It has been, yeah.
After that first text from Bloom, and he even said after, sounds like you guys are pretty busy in the toy department. I'm like, yeah, you're right. So I think we're probably good.
Yeah,
there.
you think we're okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's make this the bottom of the hour pause, and we'll get Ben Goessling in here as soon as he arrives at our location. We'll keep an eye on a number of other stories. Some toy department, some not so much. We haven't even said a word about a really nice victory for the Timberwolves last night against Okie City. And was it, as you suggested earlier, the current player's plea to Tim Conley to not mess with any kind of a seismic trade?
We don't need Giannis.
They seemed motivated last night, that's for sure. They played defense literally from the first possession, which seems like something that you should, if you're good at it, you should just do it every game from the first possession. But we did in this case, and no amount of flopping by the opposition, there I did it for you, could get in the way of an impressive Wolves victory. But we'll keep an eye on, if these things happen in threes, do they all have to be dismissals? Could the third one be Giannis coming to town? Who's to say? At this point, anything is possible. We'll come back and get ready for Mr. Goessling, get his reaction to the A football topic in the toy department today. The news that Kwesi Adopho Mensah is out as a general manager of your Minnesota Vikings. I got to give the B-Flow fans credit for tenacity, man. They never let a firing go to waste. Start to be an ex-printer guy writes, how about KOC to general manager and B-Flow to head coach? I wouldn't mind it, but I don't think KOC would like it.
I got a text during the break that said the same thing. And my response, I think, is like yours, was KOC likes calling plays too much.
He enjoys it way too much to be up with the suits.
He wants to sling it around the yard and get every blade of grass going.
Yeah, that's 100% true. It is interesting how, we've talked about this for years when it comes to Vikings head coaching changes. And I don't think this just happens here, but the tendency is you bounce back and forth from one statement to the other, right? If you start with a coach who is viewed as an unapproachable taskmaster and it doesn't go well after at first it does, Mike Zimmer.
Did you see the game?
Then when it goes bad, you say what? need a collaborator.
Players
we need
coach.
Players coach. We need somebody who will allow the players to relax a little bit.
Say hi to him in the halls.
Exactly. Then we get that for a while, and it starts promisingly, and then that goes off the rails, and we say, the players are running the whole asylum. You can't do that. We got to have it. Get a taskmaster in here. Get a throwback in here. Can you make the same argument regarding the GM position? Because who was the last guy who was our GM?
Rick Spielman.
Rick Spielman. Old school.
Football guy.
In the office late, researching everything, talking to scouts endlessly, showing up at every game, all that stuff. And then we finally said, well, that's great. That sounds good that you're Mr. Football, but we've kind of leveled off here, and where are we going with this thing? We're tired of that kind of guy. You know what we want? We want a quirky guy. We want a guy who came from some other industry entirely, right? And we're not going to question him about it. We're going to say, well, that's to your advantage. He'll be able to see what? The forest for the trees, right? Well, but then guess what? Draft after draft happens, and it doesn't go very well, and you go, whatever happened to having a good old-fashioned football guy in charge of your football operation? Now, I don't know if that's where we're headed, but that's what we careen here, back and forth between the extremes. So is that the mid-course correction this time, where the next guy...
I bet it's a football guy.
It's going to become like maybe from one of the football names.
Yeah, I bet it's a football guy.
Now, all the guys who have... There's like how many... what are the best family trees in football? I'm talking about who have the same name.
You mean like
the same last name,
like the Shanahans?
Yes,
the Kubiaks.
exactly. Are any of the Shanahans and the Kubiaks in the front office? Are they all heading?
I think they were all coaches.
Are they all coaches?
Weren't the DeBartolos a good name, or the policies? Wasn't
well policy? Yeah, DeBartolo I think was more above. I don't think he was ever GM guy. Though.
Okay,
yeah, I think he was
thinking
more
of those Niners guys.
Yeah. I'm not sure, but that's what we tend to do. Is we tend to overreact because. I said this on the TV taping on Enough Said. At the start, quirky sounds cool. I kind of like the way he talks. It's different. It's not the same old nonsense, even though there was a lot of word salad with him, too. But then if you don't get the football results, then you go, what's with this guy?
Doesn't really matter.
It's quirky. I'm bored with quirky. I don't care how... Quirky now seems like he's really not engaged in it, or he doesn't really know who to pay attention to and what to pay attention to. I'll tell you another thing that's hurt him, I think, at least from a public standpoint, is this feeling that over the years, what, have they been together 4 years? That KOC was insinuating himself into more and more stuff. And in fact, who knows if the stories are true? The stories were a couple times when Kwesi's ready to move down again in the draft, Kwesi knocks on the door and says, we can't do that again. I don't even know how accurate that is, but that's been what's been presented outside looking in. The perception is he's had to be the guy to kind of put the brakes on some of that quirkiness of Kwesi. Now, maybe Kwesi will come forward at some point. I don't know.
We'll see. I think Goessling's here. I'm going to go try to find him.
All right, you want to go get him, and I'll just tap dance?
Yeah.
We'll do that. That's fine. And I can take a look at some texts as well. The Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line is 646-86. And one of the questions, as several people have offered up for Goessling, we'll ask him that Kwesi wanted McCarthy to play and KOC did not. I will be stunned if that's what we find out, because I've always felt that there's not any way that Kwesi was going to overrule or even be allowed to overrule the head coach when it comes to whatever decision was made at the quarterback position. In fact, we got Ben. How do you get up here? Security breach? How did you get up here?
I got a key card now.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah.
Oh, good for you.
Move it up in the world.
Outstanding.
The trick was finding my way through all the construction.
Yeah, it is a little bit murky right now and a little dangerous. So be careful. Watch your head, because there's stuff falling on people and those kinds of things.
I can see where that might be a concern. We made it through, though.
Well, you walked in on the question I've gotten the most already, and that is and I don't know where I don't know what reports these textures are referring to. The notion, what's being suggested is that Kwesi wanted McCarthy to play and that KOC did not, which again would stun me, because I always felt KOC was the guy running the show at least quarterback. But can you address that, or have you heard anything similar to that?
I don't know that I've heard anything that would corroborate that entirely. I mean, I know there were people in the building that had interest in a number of the different options they explored, but ultimately, they made the decision to go along with J.J. McCarthy as a starter. I don't think they would have. I agree with you. I don't think they would have done that if Kevin O'Connell wasn't on board with it. I think, Kevin O'Connell was the voice on the quarterbacks that they was going to have the most weight, and I think it was the voice that was going to have the most weight for Kwesi Adopho Mensah.
Yes.
So, no, I'm not in a position to say 100% that happened. I don't think it did. So, it is one of those decisions that, as you look back on it, somebody is going to have to answer for it.
Sure.
And Kevin O'Connell is going to have to figure these things out too. But, that particular process, I don't think it went exactly that way.
I assume you're early in your reporting on this too, and there's a lot more that you're going to try to figure out.
Yeah.
But on the basis of what you have gleaned, and maybe what your gut tells you, what do you think happened here? Why do you think this was the moment that the decision was announced or made?
Well, yeah, I mean, so their process after the season typically is Mark Wolf alluded to this a little bit. They'll do these leadership meetings with Kevin O'Connell, it's with Kwesi Adopho Mensah, it's with Rob Brzezinski. They will kind of meet and review the season with all of those people, and then they will meet as owners to kind of synthesize all these things and say, what do we want to do? And I think there was a lot of discussion over the last few days after kind of gleaning things from these meetings that they said, okay, we've probably heard enough things that we needed to address that concerned us, that we needed to make a decision and decide to move on from Kwesi Adopho Mensah in the spot. So, I mean, I think a lot of the tensions that had been there, and, people are talking about
throwing out the T word, tensions.
Yeah. And these things have been, I mean, I've heard people talk about them, and you've certainly had conversations with people around the league that said, yeah, there's a lot of these things here. It's the question of always, I mean, every NFL building, there are people that don't see eye to eye on things. And
yeah, it's a great point.
It's not all of it is actionable. And when they were winning as much as they were, the fact that they made this decision, even after a bad season, I think they won 43 games in 4 years or something like that.
Right.
The fact that they decided this was the time to do it tells you that a lot of those things were there. And I think the ultimate thing is the drafts were not good. I mean, you needed more production from those drafts. And that draft success or lack thereof, I think, was a lot of the tension, where it makes it harder to fill out a roster. It makes it harder to manage cap stuff. You have players that get injured more probably if they're older. So I think a lot of that was rooted in that. And there was just, it was always a bit of a gamble to have somebody that didn't come from a more traditional background.
We were talking about that earlier. Yep.
And I think a lot of that played into this as well.
So, yeah, I think one of the logical follow-ups then is they just extended Kwesi after last season too, right? And you could say the draft record was already poor. It was so is that the old... he's actually on double secret probation, but we're going to go ahead for now to show, to keep things uniform and consistent and stable. We're going to go ahead and give another contract extension. Does that otherwise seem weird that you would a year later say we're done?
Well, I mean, and I asked that question today. If it's 9 months or 8 months,
right? Less than a year. You're right.
8 months and change, I think, since they did the extension. So. I mean, there was always the question at the time of, is he going to get the same length of deal as Kevin O'Connell? And they did not announce the terms of either one of those. I have found out since then that Kevin O'Connell's runs through 29. I never really found out on Kwesi Adopho Mensah's, but I don't think he was playing with the same leverage that Kevin O'Connell had. So there was this question of, are you going to move forward with him as the guy? Because there had already been people that said, this draft results need to get a lot better. I mean, that was already a topic going into last year because they had a lot of drafts that hadn't hit, including that, probably that first one more so than any other. So I think at the time it was, we just won 14 games. A lot of this has worked. Free agency was successful in 24. Right. So you move forward with it and say, he's the guy, but I think there was always a little bit of a thinner ledge to stand on probably than Kevin O'Connell had. Part of that was the market. I mean, part of that was if Kevin O'Connell would have left say his contract had expired, he absolutely would have had a lot of teams calling him to be their coach. I mean, that would came out before that finale against the Lions at 24, I had heard a lot of that. I mean, that was very much the case, that there would have been a lot of interest in him being the guy. I don't know that Kwesi Adopho Mensah was playing with the same leverage. Yeah. So that plays into it. Mark Wilf alluded to some of those things. He talked about market realities at the owners' meetings last year, and he alluded to, so that's what he means by that. But yes, I think it was always a little bit of, okay, there's not anything actionable here yet, but if we get to that point, then you can make the move.
Is KOC going Alexander Haig on the bit now that Kwesi is gone and KOC's power within the organization is significantly going up? Now, that would almost suggest a Palace coup. I'm not here to accuse KOC of stabbing anybody in the back. I don't have that kind of information. Maybe eventually you guys will. However, I do think you guys have all told me that the signals going forward, even before this, was that KOC was becoming more than a coach, little by little. And I don't care what anybody says. If they're going to go with Brzezinski in the draft, as far as I'm concerned, the way I'm interpreting that is that KOC is running the draft.
Well, they're not going to do things that KOC doesn't want to do. I don't think you're going to have Rob Brzezinski saying, I know that you prefer to go a different direction here, but I'm running this draft, so that's what we're going to do. I don't think it's going to go that way. I think Kevin O'Connell's progression as the coach certainly has involved being more in touch with free agents. It's been being more in touch with players that are having contract issues. I think when Daniil Hunter was going through his things, Kevin O'Connell was very involved in that process. So what that means is you start to wear more hats. Even if you're not wearing them officially, you are trying them on, so to speak, where you have a few more moments where even if it's not your explicit job, you get involved in these things because you are the head coach. I don't think he is ever going to be the type of head coach that just says, nope, not my problem, not my department. I just run the football team and my job is figuring out the third down game plan for the game on Sunday. I don't think he goes about it that way because I don't think he believes that's the right way to do the job. It does mean that when you are in more of those meetings and you have a direct line of communication to the owners, he talks with the owners after every game. So there is going to be, I think, more opportunities where your voice is going to be heard. And I think that's probably what they want. I mean, I think they want, even if it's a general manager that's in a traditional role,
when is the draft?
About, the draft is April 23rd.
Okay, can you make the argument that it's January 30th?
Yeah.
Is there any rational reason why you cannot try to get somebody in place before the draft? It's not like it's in 2 weeks.
Yeah, you could. The catches to that are you have a lot of candidates that are probably working for other teams now.
Right.
And I also think that whoever you get to do this job is somebody you have to be fairly confident is going to work well with Kevin O'Connell.
Right.
It's going to be somebody whose vision of things is fairly well aligned.
Are you saying he's hard to work with?
No, I think the way he comes about it, I think there were differences of how you go about things with Kwesi Adopho Mensah. So I think having somebody that's probably a little more of that traditional football background that comes from the scouting world, speaks the language a little bit more, probably is going to be where this goes. And you need to make sure that you have that person that clicks well with Kevin O'Connell and probably with Brian Flores too. I mean, that's the other piece of this, I would say.
You're telling me, this is what we talked about earlier, the way we bounce back and forth between on coaches, hard-ass, players coach, general manager, football guy, and somebody who thinks out of the box. So this sounds like what you're saying is we should bring back Rick Spielman, and maybe he would get along better with the KOC football approach.
Well, if I mean, he's been doing all sorts of consulting for front office. I don't think that's going to be the move.
No,
but
probably not.
I think it will probably not be the analytics quantitative type guy in the job the next time around. I think they're going to have that department, certainly, but I don't think that person's going to be calling the shots.
Chris writes, Darnold in the Super Bowl is embarrassing the franchise. That is the bloody knife in Kwesi's back. If Darnold flopped, Kwesi still has a job. Now, that's quite an explosive allegation. Do you think it has any kernel of truth to it?
I mean, it's not a good look for the Vikings at the moment.
But
no, I don't think that's
him,
it.
Right?
No, it's not. And I don't think that's how the Wilfs operate.
Right.
I don't think they would have said, well, if the Rams won the game, okay, we're good. We're keeping Kwesi. I don't think that was going to be the case. It certainly brings that whole decision back into the limelight. But no, I don't think that was, I don't think that had a lot to do with why they made this move.
This one, I didn't see this one coming. with the GM position open now, and given the success from Indiana, and there's his skill set, I assume he must be talking about Cignetti being in personnel and finding great players. I think we definitely need some of that Indiana in that position moving forward. There it is. That's the first call for Cignetti to be, I guess you'd say, president of football operations.
He's just doing that because he knows that you have the mic as a Hoosier and you're going to get him on the air because he's sucking up to Indiana.
I would never do anything like that. How about this idea? Is it time for the return of the triangle of authority?
Well, it's funny because the guy that kind of ended up in the most different role as a result of that was Rob Brzezinski. Rob Brzezinski was the third leg of the famous triangle of authority, as I think the term coined by Kevin Seifert, if I'm not mistaken. It was Rick Spielman as the football guy, Rob Brzezinski as the cap guy, and the head coach, Brad Childress and Leslie Frazier. So you've got 2/3 of it back together. You need a general manager. I don't think they'll go that way, but I think informally there's going to be some of those things where even if Rob Brzezinski goes back to his old job, he will have worn this hat for a few months. I think just naturally you're going to have a bigger voice in these things probably, and he's got a big voice already, but I think that will only increase as he's going through this draft.
Well, Gargi asked that question. So how do we view, because I think Brzezinski has sort of been pigeonholed as he's the capologist guy.
Yep.
So how much background has he developed over the years in running a draft or evaluating players in the sense of what we expect from somebody in that position?
Well, I mean, he's not coming at it from a traditional scouting perspective, but he certainly knows his way around a talent evaluation. I think just over the number of years, he's been here since 1999. I was trying to think of the number of people in that organization who have been there longer than him, and I can't imagine it's more than a few. So whether it's working for different general managers, different coaches, different ownership groups even, he's been exposed to a lot of on-the-job training. And, I think just talking with him over the years, he certainly knows what he's looking for in a football player and has been involved in enough of those meetings. That's not, necessarily his primary function, but I think he has developed a lot of ability to handle those things as you go. And a lot of the job that he does is talking with agents. I mean, a lot of the negotiations that happen on contracts, Rob Brzezinski is doing a lot of that work. So the discussion of how agents view things, how depth charts, playing time, all of the football and financial interactions that go on, he's involved in all of those things. So, I think over the course of time, you do develop a better handle of how to do it. I don't know that they're going to make that the deciding factor, but if he is a candidate and he decides he wants it, I think he can point to the number of years he's been around and say, I've acquired enough knowledge of how to do this that I could do the job.
The Beef Lobos are working overtime today, man. How about this one? Why not make Flores general manager / defensive coordinator?
He's got a scouting background.
The Beeflo people, man. Earlier it was
general manager,
promote
defensive coordinator.
That would be unprecedented, I think, wouldn't it?
What
officially
shape is that authority structure? I mean, like you're my boss, but also my subordinate.
Out of the box.
Yeah. Why are we stopping here? Why not just give him Leonard Wilf's stake in the team? Just have Mark,
Somebody will suggest it.
Yeah, and B-Flow.
Somebody will suggest it before it's done. Yeah, I don't think that's...
Triangle of anarchy.
That would be, I don't think that would be, but it just shows you how strongly people feel. Somebody else earlier suggested move up KOC to be president of football operations and B-Flow to coach, but we both said, I think KOC likes calling the plays way too much to do that. At least right now.
Could he be offensive coordinator and GM?
There you go.
I mean, if you can't rule anything out. No. I think that would be unusual. I would imagine that he will probably stay in the job that he has.
All right, Christian from Tennessee. Let's see. Hold on a second. Let me double check here. Oh, Rosemount. Why did I get Tennessee?
Well, I have no idea. Is there a Rosemount in Tennessee?
Maybe there is. So he's calling you out. Here's his text.
Okay.
Come on, Ben. Open up on what's going on. He thinks you're holding something back that but don't feel yet comfortable to say. Is he right?
I'm not sure what he's referring to. Right. I think I will say this generally because I've heard a fair amount of this. This has become one of those things that everybody kind of got started on today, and it's you guys all know stuff and you're hiding it all. There is a level of judgment you have to make in this job when you don't work for a tabloid. I mean, there's a difference between I hear
Which is why I said this town needs a tabloid.
Well, sure. I don't know that I'm going to be the reporter they hire to
that could be,
cover the Vikings for said publication, but there is, I think there's gossip.
Yes.
And there's news. And a lot of the job becomes, you hear a lot of things. And I've heard things, put it this way, there have been things I've heard over the last few years that if I had said them, people would have said you're nuts. And
now I'm intrigued. What does that mean?
It's just in terms of where some tensions come from and all of these kinds of things. And you hear it and it's like, okay, I don't know if that is true, but I'm going to stick it under my cap. I'm going to try to report it out. I'm going to try to figure out what's going on because
but you've never had enough faith in it. In the reporting part of it to report it is what you're saying.
Yes.
Might that change now that somebody has been let go? Do you think it's more likely that you're going to be able to get to that?
Well, it's possible. I think some of it, because everybody says, you guys are all just hiding because you're afraid of losing your access. The Pro Football Writers of America makes it very clear that your access to the team has nothing to do with the way you cover it. Right. So that's in media policy. That is not a concern. It's about, do we know this beyond a reasonable doubt? And I don't want to apply a criminal standard to this by any means or a courtroom standard to it, but you are thinking about it in terms of I need to be very solid on this because it does become something that affects perception. It affects narratives in the fan base. Like I'm aware of all of that.
Just wing it.
So you
just
could
throw it out there.
Sure, you can. That doesn't tend to be the way I operate. Maybe it makes me a little more boring and maybe it opens me up to these kinds of things. But my general approach is going to be if I know something and I'm saying it in a concrete manner, it means that I'm confident enough in it through a number of layers of reporting to say it.
Ben Goessling is in studio. He, of course, covers the Vikings for the Star Tribune and joins us weekly. I'm going to let you sit on this question for when we come back because there's a bunch more, obviously, we can cover. Don't forget, John Bream is going to join us about 4:30ish or so by telephone. He was at the Springsteen benefit concert, I guess you could say, at First Avenue that ended about 2 o'clock that included his anti-Trump protest song. And then Lavelle will be at 5:30 to talk about Derek Falvey and the Twins parting ways. But here's your question to sit on during the break. This is from Dave, who writes, how close are the Vikings to becoming a dumpster fire? It's an interesting question. I think he means it somewhat satirically, but maybe not totally, because it seems to me this is a pretty key juncture for KOC moving forward, and maybe even a shot across the bow by the owners to say everybody's on notice now because we're tired of not making the playoffs. Yeah. Or once we get in, not going anywhere. So we'll pick that up on that point with Ben when we return. Top of the